Hello, I am Radagast, and this is Mystic Brew with globalists trying to hack our minds. Okay, so this story is going to be largely about the whole Russian hacked the United States elections. But I just want to say I've been off. I had to take off a few days. I got hit by something pretty unpleasant right after New Year's. It's manifesting all kinds of things, and I am my own doctor. Sometimes I'm just I'm just pushing and I'm ignoring things. I might have mentioned that my eye had been tearing, and it had to do with the fact that my body was signaling me, because this is where your gallbladder meridian is, that I needed to do a liver cleanse, which flushes your gallbladder out. And on Tuesday, I woke up. Wednesday, I woke up and was in almost double over with gallbladder pain. So when I woke up, I just realized it was a day not to eat, do my gallbladder cleanse. And on Thursday, I was back. At least my gallbladder is back to normal. Now I'm getting back to normal. And it's just really interesting how my eye tearing made my nose run, which created a post-nasal drip that then went into my lungs and created a little bit of a lung infection. So, I mean, this is how having, like in my case, how my gallbladder needing to get cleaned out by doing a liver cleanse, which forces a lot of bile into the body. I mean, probably shouldn't get too technical. Who knows? Some doctor might go, oh, you're dispensing medical information. But anyway, so how that needing to flush out my gallbladder had created a tearing eye that had then created when your eyes tear, usually your nose runs, and not everything always runs out the front of your nose. Sometimes it runs down the back, the nasal connection, it runs into your throat. Then that can trickle down. Some of it can make it, your epiglottis is not engaged because you're not swallowing. So some of it trickles. The epiglottis is a little flap that goes over the common tube that you're swallowing and your breathing use going down. It's kind of like the little cap to the lungs. So if you're not swallowing, you're normally breathing. So the things that are going down your throat that would be harmless, like postnasal drip, would be harmless in your stomach. But if it drips into your trachea, with any trace of the normal things that your nose is filtering out anyway, which would contain some pathogens, and they get into the very beautiful, moist, blood-laden environment of your lungs, the bacteria can flourish. And especially there's always mucus in your lungs. Bacteria love mucus. It's such a protein-rich medium for them to grow. Okay, so enough about my health. So the globalists are trying to hack our minds. Now, the reason I say that is because this story about the Russian hack, of course, now because it's focusing on the American election, but of course you hear echoes of it in the EU or in Europe. And the globalist news network, also known as the MSNBC, is everything. I mean, now even though Fox leans a little bit away, they're just leaning away. Their feet are planted in the globalist thing. And of course, because it's who owns these things. The news reporters can only distance themselves so much from the person who signs their paycheck without interrupting their paychecks getting signed. And I don't care if you have a $20 million a year contract with someone, you don't sign your own check. All right. So people are like, oh, they're rich. Chris Rock one time did a pretty good skit on the difference between being rich and wealth. And he was talking about some kind of, I forget which football player that he had picked. And he goes, oh, you think he might be rich? Yeah, he's kind of rich. But the person who signs his check, he's wealthy. So, the globalist news networks, and whether it's BBC, The Guardian, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, and of course, CNN, they're all, look, this is all part of the mind control that is essential for the globalist takeover, which is, globalism or the New World Order is just another kind of softer sounding word to totalitarianism. If you're looking to run the whole globe, that's totalitarianism. All right. which ultimately is, might as well, I mean, in this case, it's corporate communism. Everybody's equal except them. If you haven't read Animal Farm will take you through in the most beautiful metaphor of how this works. It really is a good read. It used to be recommended reading. I think I read it in, let's see, were there any women in my class? So no, it had to be in junior high school. I stopped going to school with women in the seventh grade. I think it was a great thing because as my hormones came online, I wasn't distracted in class. When I got outside, I could get distracted, and if my distractions led to nice interactions, I could. There were certain things you can't do in a classroom, and who needs hormones acting up in the classroom? So Animal Farm. So anyway, this whole, to me, the selling of this story to people is an attempt to hack into our minds, to hack in and place a narrative created by globalists, of which the United States is part of that team. I do believe that the newly elected president is not a globalist. At least everything said on the campaign trail certainly sounds like he's not a globalist. His behaviors and some of the people he's chosen, like to me, the real actors are not globalists. He seems to have taken a few globalists, or at least in the way of economic people in. But you need a golem to guide you through the minds of Moria, because he knows the way. So there's definitely a few goblins or golems in the mix, but they'll be useful. Plus, in certain cases, you need to keep your friends close and your enemies closer, so you can keep an eye on them. So. I mean, the way you kind of know that how the globalist media is because they're basically the same narrative emits from all these different mouths. I like to say they breathe the same air and exhale the same fetid, stinking breath. That's how, by their fruits, you will know them. And if it's stinking fruit, it's globalist fruit. All right. So really, this whole hacking story to me is an attempted hack. There was an article that I saw on minds.com, of course, where you'll be able to find this video, as well as my YouTube channel, ModWiz125. And I love it. It's called "You're Kidding, Right? Social Media Unimpressed by Intel Report on the Russian Hacking U.S. Election." And I had made a little comment because I actually found this article on minds.com. And when, you're kidding me, right? I wrote as a reply, it kind of like reminds me when you try to feed apparently at least on social media, the attitude of this story being placed for them to consume reminds me, I don't know if you've had any cats and you give them some food that they're not interested in, and they do that kind of the scooping of the kitty litter over the turd move onto the food. Someone's even scraped their paw over the food. This is how I feel this hacking story has been treated, and rightly so. It is the equivalent of a kitty turd. Unfortunately, they're trying to put it in our heads, and that'll lead to a brain infection. Don't do it. All right, so I like I used to do when I first started this. Boy, January 20th is going to be my 2-year anniversary on the ModWiz YouTube channel. And when I first got involved with the Global Mission of Peace, I moved Mystic. I had just started Mystic View. It got moved over to Global Mission of Peace TV. I was missing my subscribers and just also acting in my own unconventional way. Mystic View still gets done with the wonderful Shelley Evans, and you can find that on Global Mission of Peace T.V, because there's another a kind of a rebellious sort that who's no longer with us that I think has a Global Mission of Peace TV without the dots, and there's no affiliation. So let me just put on my glasses because I write like my old times. I used to spend almost the whole day writing down notes, and then I would because I was doing shows almost daily then. And what I would do is I'd get up in the day because I'd always do my shows in the evening. And then I would get an idea, and then I would, get a piece of paper and scribble down ideas. And so I would develop my idea. I would develop my talking points. And when I kind of came back on my YouTube channel, I was speaking a lot more extemporaneously. And I had a feeling that I might have been meandering a bit, because I think in a very holistic, multi-directional, sometimes even multi-dimensional kind of way. And I thought that maybe the videos I was putting out didn't have the lucidity that that I'm capable of in my language. And I'm certainly capable of in my thoughts, provided I either self-direct, or as this, I have a project I want to do with a friend where we'll be doing it together. And part of that, besides having two voices, is one of the voices will help keep me on track if we're working without a script, although I think we will be working from a script. So my liver cleanse has certainly helped my eyes. That's the other thing. When your eyes tear, I had noticed my eyesight was getting a little dimmer. After my cleanse, I noticed my eyesight improved considerably, but also I tend to scribble very small. So for me to see some of my scribble, I'm going to put these on for a second. So, so hacking. So here's one of the things also. This is what we have to, I think we have to be, part of discernment is parsing out how language is used. And then when people make an assertion, how do they back it up? How do they meander? And was their insertion, in fact, basically nothing more than weaselly words? And if there's one thing both politicians and the MSM newscasters specialize in, it's being weasels. And weasels use weasel words. So we have this whole concept, okay, they hacked our elections. So this is a word that's being dropped in that we're being asked to put in here as what really happened there. Hacking. The basic concept of hacking, as we all know it, is a form of breaking and entering. Okay, so where you have some kind of security, and however that's enacted, and somebody manages to breach the security and enter into what you consider to be a private space for yourself. In your home, that would be if your door was locked, or even if it wasn't unlocked, and somebody unwelcomed by you to come into your domain turns the door and lets themselves in. Okay, so that's the basic. The first part of a hack is to enter into a domain, whether it's a cyber domain or your other, but in this case, hacking is a cyber breaking and entering. And then the other part of hacking often is it just breaking and entering, or does it involve breaking, entering, and theft? So in which case you compromise somebody and you're maybe looking at some emails and then you remove those emails, that's kind of theft. So, so now we've kind of defined what hacking is, all right? But they're using this term hacking as they hacked our elections. So what they're saying in words is that there is somehow some kind of way of affecting the elections by breaking and entering into the actual voting process. I mean, as you enter your vote into a voting machine, that somehow somebody's coming in and interrupting that after you've entered what you want to happen. After you've already entered your vote, somebody changes that vote. That's what hacking the vote would be. There's no evidence of that. So what they've done is they have not very exquisite, just actually plain old weaselly ways. What they're saying is the way they hack the election is they're saying that they, I guess, got these emails. Now, first of all, of John Podesta and Hillary Clinton. Now, Hillary Clinton had a private email server, okay? So that's not government property. John Podesta had a Gmail account. That's not government property. So if there was hacking, and I don't think there was, Julian Assange says there wasn't, but even if they hacked, they didn't hack the US government. They hacked private citizens, but they did not hack the US government. And they certainly didn't hack the US electoral system. So, and again, I do not follow that they did this, that the Russian government, ordered by President Putin, said, let us hack John Podesta's email. Now, of course, everybody knows that John Podesta apparently had to respond to what is known as a phishing scam. Okay, a phishing scam is like doing some kind, it's like, like doing something on the street with somebody where they offer you something for something, and somehow they get something from you. It's almost more like pickpocketing, not hacking. So, I mean, they're being really loose, and they have to be loose because they're trying to emotionally plug people in. They're trying to create a scenario that does not exist. And as they put this story together, it is built terribly. And so anyway, so what the real story is and how they're putting together they hacked the election is, first of all, they're saying that Russia somehow got a hold of Podesta and Hillary's emails. All right. Now, we've already established these were private, non-government servers. All right. So we don't have, even if they're what I think is a bullshit story were true, they hacked private emails, took out the information, and then somehow got it to to people, which to WikiLeaks, and then WikiLeaks published them. People were rightly horrified by what they saw revealed. Especially all the stealing from the stealing from Bernie Sanders, the really weird concepts of all these elite people who go to 5-star restaurants having this just obsession with hot dogs and pizza. All right. I mean, again, that is just strange. And so, of course, alarm bells will ring off. I'm not going to contrive a story out of that. I'm just going to say these people are bizarre. But anyway, we see the whole, well, I think the proper word might be chicanery that they pulled with what they did to Bernie Sanders, giving Hillary questions before the debates. I mean, just sleazy politics. Of course, politics tend to be sleazy. That's why I'm not into politics. I'm not into parties. I have no affiliation. Just like I only have one head on my body, making decisions from my body. Well, this body, to me, is like any sovereign government. So my body could be the equivalent of the United States government. I don't want two heads. I mean, yeah, I'll have competing thoughts. I mean, again, there are politics between people, the discussion of ideas, but to have like two monolithic things that stand for different things, that's would be diagnosed as schizophrenia. All right, and to me, politics at an institutional level is institutionalized schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is considered a psychosis. So to me, politics at a national level is psychosis at the national level. All right, plain and simple. I want good ideas and that work for the body of however government is construed. I want to make sure I stay on point here. So for me, this whole story is a big steaming pile of political bullshit. And fortunately, most people are getting more discerning. They're seeing that these people are taking a most meandering and circuitous path to something that should be a slam dunk. And so, this whole thing about, we need all the secrecy. I mean, we're all entitled to privacy. Secrecy is asking people who are going to be affected by your decisions to not be involved. And I mean, talk about the only hacking I see is political hackery, political hacks doing political hack things. That's that real hacking of this story. Political hacks. My lungs are still in process. I should be doing more inhalations of some essential oils, but I just got to put the boiling water and put the towel over, and I get lazy. I'm really good at knowing what I need to do, but doing it sometimes falls behind. But when I get into crisis, I act. I'm a terrible patient to my own doctor. All right, so I think, all right, so this whole hacking story. So, and to me, selling this story is they're trying to hack into our psychology. They're trying to hack into our decision making as a nation with a Trojan horse. I mean, there are so many metaphors we could use here. Fortunately, it seems like our antivirus software overall, as a majority, is working really well. This story, this Trojan horse, this virus they're trying to put into our brains, into our psychology, is being rejected as a majority. Do we have people who are buying the story? Of course we do. I mean, it's part of it. But it's almost like at any given time, if you look into your body, you'll probably find some pathogens. The fact is, do they take hold and start affecting the body as a whole? We can all, a healthy body, and that means that generally your immune system is working, so it rejects viruses overall. To having a few people, which can be millions, but we are a country of 350 million, having, a couple of tens of millions of people who actually buy the story, that is not a crisis. That won't really hurt the health of the body that we're going to call the United States of America. And so it's just, again, it's a good immune system can deal with some toxins in the body. And I consider people buying the hacking story, they're toxins in our body. And hopefully the liver will purify them. Notice I said purify, not eliminate. As sometimes it's just, if those viruses get removed out of their brains, well, then they're clean and everything gets good. So I'm all about, I'm a very holistic person. I'll probably do a video on holism versus whole. Let's say it this way: holism versus holism. Holism is with a W, and it talks about having something that's whole in its concept. Holistic with an H is something that has a hole in it. That's another story. And I might have even done a video in the old days of it. So maybe I should check before I double down on that one. So hacking, breaking it. So globalist central. Really the mainstream media is globalist central. These are the premier channels of planting thought viruses in your mind. And fortunately, as our own immune system builds, and an immune system is about the education of the responsive parts of ourselves. It's called immunocompetency. Immunocompetency in the body. This is biological. Don't forget, I'm a medical massage therapist. I have extensive anatomical training, and I love science. I love biology. Because I get a chance to see how the miracle of specifically the human species, how it decodes all of this information coming from the greater universe, decodes through our chakra system, distributes through our innate eyes. You might not know all these terms, and then manages to inform our body. So as our immune system grows, and of course, immunocompetence, the T killer cells are educated in the thymus gland. The thymus gland is influenced by the blue-green spectrum. That's why you see me with blue-green, because part of what I'm trying to do in my teachings, and what I would consider modern wisdom, I am actually, by trying to share this knowledge with you, I'm trying to help you be immunocompetent. And that is the ability to recognize what is foul, what is toxic, and minimally reject it. Because unless a virus finds a cell that it can get to duplicate itself, a virus is harmless. A virus cannot replicate itself. So if it can't dupe an actual biological cell to take my DNA and replicate my RNA instead of your DNA and RNA, there's no infection. So immunocompetence, the ability to resist mind viruses, is how we stay healthy. And I more and more, and And of course, the other part, how the body does, is sharing of information. I mean, Dan Winter's all about sharing and coherence. So as through social media, we're able to share our wisdom. It's almost like after something has gone into the thymus and gotten some wisdom. In my case, like I've spent my whole life accruing wisdom, but then we can then go share it with other cells. So even if there's not a T cell nearby, if the average cell you get approached by a virus has been informed about what a virus looks like, when the virus comes and go, oh, wouldn't you like to have some of my DNA and make some of me? Take a fucking walk. Go away. Satan, get behind me. You know, I mean, it's just, if all of this evil needs an accomplice, a virus needs an accomplice, these things are nothing unless they can infect basically God's output or outpouring into this 3D world. Unless those ideas, those viruses find a home where hands can then do it, there's no action. Evil does not kill anybody. People infected by evil kill people and do bad things. There is no evil without humans doing it. Otherwise, it's just like a virus. It's floating out there. It's part of the psychic environment. But unless it finds a home, it's harmless. So without humans doing evil, evil is a non-subject, other than to recognize what it might look like in the mind, to recognize that it's anti-life, that it's anti-sharing. I mean, secrecy is part of evil, because we can't share. So by us sharing our information, we start to learn what toxic waste or a virus looks like. And that's why this story, as they say, they're kidding, right? Social media unimpressed by Intel report on Russian hacking U.S. election. It's nonsense. And by this sharing, we now have a coherence. As they try to dump this incoherent story into a coherent mass, the masses reject it. It's spun out. So, coherence is actually how galaxies are, hurricanes. I mean, you look at a galaxy and look at a hurricane on an overhead map, and you'll see the same organizational principle. And even a tornado is a little more of a compact thing. So as this junk kind of goes in there, it doesn't find any resonance with it, gets spit out. And that's all we have to do with toxic waste, evil thoughts, and creepy people. Nobody has to hang from lampposts, even be put in prison. They need to be ignored. They're just junk. I mean, again, it's like a toilet. I mean, when you flush the turds into your cesspool, they don't die. They just go live where they belong. Yeah, I guess I wrote something here, controversy, emotional triggers. Yeah, this is kind of talking just as I try to get a little more active in making videos. Again, I have, for somebody on the web for 2 years, my subscribership is humble. Thank you to all my subscribers, though. I really appreciate you. Many of you have been around with me for the 2 years, and I really appreciate it. I mean, sometimes I make videos and I'll lose 2 or 3, and I go, well, I guess I offended somebody. When I look at other people who are really doing well, they tend to plug in people emotionally more. They're a little more controversial. And I'm trying to get information into people. I'm trying to share things. And I know that triggering people emotionally that's not the state I want. I mean, obviously I want to engage you. I'd rather engage you with my humor and a little bit of irreverence than that kind of, shock and awe type of, plugging you in. I don't want to plug people in the reaction to what they're doing. If I'm going to get a reaction out of somebody, it's going to be what we're going to do, what kind of world we're going to do, the new paradigm production. And I have some, again, I'm working with other people, I'm going to get involved locally. I have all kinds of ideas for this new 2017, this one universal year going forward. But for right now, I'll continue on with what I've been doing. So anyway, I would love to have more subscribers, but I'm not going to try and find out what do I need to insert to get people more interested. I know getting controversial, being emotional, saying completely outrageous things might get me more audience. But as much as I want to be entertaining, I really want to be informative. And I just am not willing to chase subscribers. I want to attract subscribers. And so I just have to try and keep the controversial down. I mean, my last video was a retraction video because again, I don't want to be putting people off, and even people who I currently think might not be acting in humanity's best interest. First of all, I'm not having conversations with them, so I can't say I know their minds. I see their actors. By their fruits, I will judge them, but sometimes I don't even get a chance to look at their fruits per se. I can't broad brush. My own wisdom, my own God connection it gives that feeling of love, and I wish to respond and stay in resonance with that. Just to be wise, and try and get a figure, knowing that the psychopaths are only 3% of the population. And then huge swaths of the populations are simply minions under their mind virus. And people who sometimes are even enough under the spell that they think that they are the elite. And, when I go after the real problem, these people who are the minions think that, they're in the club too. They don't realize how quickly they'll be hung out to dry when their usefulness has expired. And if I use certain language, I'm hoping to, first of all, break the spell. If more people had watched Lord of the Rings, or read Lord of the Rings, but there's a real difference how Peter Jackson presented it. I loved what he did, but there are certain things that are not in the books, and certain people might be like deep Lord of the Rings people, but have only read the books. Although I think that would be pretty odd. So sometimes there's a difference between what was presented in the movies and what was presented in the books regarding certain people. But in the movies, Saruman has Theoden deep in his spell. Mac he's actually possessed him. And so basically, Theoden banished his own son-in-law because that's what Saruman wanted. Because his son-in-law, Eomer, was aware that Mordor was getting blamed for things because orcs were doing things in Rohan that in fact Saruman was doing. And of course it was easy to discern because his orcs had the mark of the white hand on their helmets. And when this was discovered by Eomer, Theoden had a kind of a court counselor. Wasn't quite a vizier, but he was almost like a little wizard's apprentice. And when Eomer was calling Grima Wormtongue on the fact that he was trying to blame it on Mordor, and Eomer says, no, these are not from Mordor. These are from Isengard, which is where Saruman lived. And he throws down a helmet with the white hand on it. And Grima goes, oh, Eomer, you see much. You see too much. And then he banishes him and pulls out, some piece of paper that has Theoden's really sickly looking script on it that of course was signed by Theoden, but because he was possessed by Saruman, couldn't really get it done. So anyway, so basically Gandalf comes and through his own aegis, first he tries to, do one of these little, you are gone. And of course Saruman is no punk wizard. And he's like, you'll have to do better than that. And then Gandalf does. And then he's restored and he comes back. Basically, what I'm making here is Theoden wasn't a psychopath. He was a minion of a psychopath, of which Saruman had become. He had betrayed his archetype. And so that's why I really don't want to offend minions so much. And of course, and again, when you're trying to really blast somebody out, it's an exorcism. It's a one-on-one thing. You don't do it in a video. But I also don't want to plug them in or just hurt them, because I believe in let's call it the Holy Spirit that can work through us all, and wants to reclaim us. And so I'd much rather try and I'd rather almost be more seductive through wisdom than controversial. I didn't make note of my time, but I'll try to write this up because this is really about the Russian hacking, and I'm getting all over the place. But it's really interesting because much of this is, again, this is about the mainstream media and them being the globalist mouthpiece. This is how the globalists insert their mind viruses, and just to see the kind of control they had and how they'll do one thing, but it might have so. Let's say the assassination of the Russian ambassador in Turkey a few weeks ago, which I made a video about, so I won't get back into that. But we'll take it at face value. And so one of the things at face value that would be what would happen is that, maybe some people might feel some pity or at least condolences for Russia. Oh, well, condolences for Russia can't be permitted. So what happens? That story got erased because a few hours later, that bus runs down people. Where was it? In Berlin or something? I think, again, it was in Europe. And of course, more people died there. So that's the bigger news story. So we can't be feeling bad that Russia's getting its ambassadors killed by terrorists. That's not good for the global narrative. Anything that casts the Russians in any kind of a good light is not okay by the globalists. And of course, what's one of the real issues with Russia for the globalists? They want to be sovereign, and they are recovering their Christianity. Okay, now, and it's not even so much about Christianity, other than there's a deep spirituality to Eastern Orthodox, and it's that spirituality, it's that connection with wisdom and the ineffable that is unacceptable to the globalists. The globalists, look, it's basically communism, it's Marxism. When you see the embrace or the making okay, and even the support of an apostate satanic outgrowth of what's called Islam, which is the Wahhabist version of it, out of Saudi Arabia, basically, you can see why they would promote it, because it's satanic. And again, by satanic, I always press it because they're somewhat one of my favorite people to listen to, and even for, on all things, especially his world commentary and political commentary is Styx Hexenhammer, and he is, if he claims anything, like I'm a Sophian, he's a Satanist. But that meaning of Satan to him is not the normal meaning. So I guess demonic, I'll call it. I think most of us agree that demons don't act in this world for the benefit of nice people. Excuse me. So I don't want to be controversial. So anyway, the reason I bring up the Russian thing is about timelines. Keep an eye on timelines. Watch stories that break, and then a few hours later, some other story breaks, and always see usually how one covers the other, and then look at the one that's being covered and try and parse out why it's being covered. Like I said, in the case of the Russian ambassador, the globalists don't want a shred of sympathy or condolences felt for Russia. Russia is to be demonized. Why is Russia to be demonized? Because they want the non-demon to be identified as a demon, because the demon that's actually acting needs cover. So they need a false demon. It's a magician's trick. Watch what this hand while this other hand's doing. So basically, whenever the demons will always try to demonize non-demons. It's really simple stuff. And again, humans can be messy. Humans aren't perfect, but they're not demonic destruction machines especially in a global thing. I mean, look, humans will fight. They'll even occasionally battle with each other, but organized wars, especially world wars, so they're rackets. They're demonic rackets. And again, even when you go, oh, World War II was a good war, all you have to do is look at the demons who funded Adolf Hitler, and then you'll realize what a contrived war it was. So keep track of the timelines so you can kind of see how they move. I'm quite sure they might have wanted to get rid of the Russian ambassador. Again, my videos cover that, so I'm not going to go over that. Now let's take to me, another issue is, a lot of people are saying about, oh, Islam is not a religion of peace, and people are saying, and look, that's a hard story to pick out. But I mean, one of the Sheikh Imam Hussein, who was a Sunni Muslim, of the kind of the more Sufi branch, so he's very enlightened, and he's a joy to listen to. And of course, he's a doctrinaire, but he's a Sufi doctrinaire, so it's from the heart. And even if let's try to try and clean things out, because not every single Muslim that might be making some problems from because they're angry. And it might even be using certain jihadi type stuff. I'm trying to parse this out. The main cause for holy war is against oppressors. Okay, this so you know, this is in kind of terminology that Sheikh Imran Hussein would use. They absolutely believe they have a God-directed right to fight oppressors. And I think almost any of us would go, yeah, if somebody's oppressing us, we have a right to stop it. And then now look at the Anglo-American NATO thing and where we make trouble, and you will find that our governments, at the very least, are responsible for the oppression. Even if we're not necessarily bombing it, if they have a leader of their country who was put into place by the NATO alliance. I mean, why does Bashar Assad have to go go? Because they want to put in somebody who will oppress the population of Syria, which is Jewish, largely Muslim, and Christian. It's the birthplace of Christianity, the original Christianity, not Paul, who went and did it in Turkey. Although it was on the road to Damascus in Syria that he had the scales removed from his eyes. So there are a lot, the Muslim community, whether they're Wahhabists or not, from their experience in their country, whether or not it's just that they have a really crappy leader of their country, the chances are that crappy leader was put into place by the West and probably some of our foreign alphabet agencies. Whatever it is done with funding and the absolute helping along by the West. So even if it's a Muslim oppressing Muslims, if that Muslim leader was put there by the West, that is the West indirectly oppressing Muslims. So they rightly have a bone to pick, which is why while we are stirring and beating up the hornet's nest, and again, when I say we, I mean I am not supportive of these actions. But if we're not out having daily protests to stop the shit now, then we bear some responsibility at some level. So I mean, at least to the point where if you're going to speak about your country, you say we. All right. So this is why at a certain time, why I think stopping all this immigration, or vetting the immigration is really what I think. Of course, everybody goes, oh, well, vetting alone can't be 100%. It's not about being 100%. The destabilization, especially in the EU, we're seeing, doesn't need to stop 100%. All right. At the percentage now, obviously, there needs to stem the flow until things get corrected. And part of course, the correction is that the West either stops bombing or meddling in the politics of these countries, so these countries can actually be the homes of the people that are there. And then you might, then you'll have the regular people who want to leave their country because, I kind of like. I'd like to be a little bit more part of the Western culture. I can keep my own personal belief systems. I can probably find a local mosque that is very comfortable being in a Western country and isn't trying to change it. They're just trying to keep their belief system. And then there's a really nice little integration and everything can work. There is no black and white here. There's intelligent ways of doing things. And okay, I think the best thing I'm going to make is kind of, okay, there's art and there's slop. So let's take the idea of diversity, okay? And diversity even of cultures. Let's think of the different cultures that we have around the world, and there's a lot of cultures, as colors on a palette. A palette is something, for some of you might, I'm not talking about the palette here, it's a different spelling. This is a P-A-L-E-T-T-E, and that's something that the painters use to have their main colors, and then usually in the center they can mix their colors. They take their paintbrush and apply it to the canvas, or whatever medium they're applying their paints to. So what we're looking at is on this palette is kind of like all the different cultures of the world. And when we look at countries, each country is its own kind of form of artwork. Hopefully it's artwork. It should ideally be artwork. Art is the expression of the divine spirit. And we should always, again, from my place, we are all expressions of the divine. And, as I say, the world is in God's hands, and God's hands are at the end of all our arms. So since our arms are taking instructions from our brain, we'd want to take that instruction from our own higher aligned will, so that we're actually part of cosmic consciousness. And cosmic consciousness isn't about waving wands. God isn't a wand waver. The creation was done. We were put on here. We are now the agents of that cosmic consciousness, that benevolence acting in the world, but can only act through us. To act through us, we have to open and align with it. And of course, there is no instruction. This is inspired art to the situation. It's about looking at whatever medium you're working in, whether medium's a society, building in a plot or whatever, and then getting the aesthetic where, the feng shui and the energy flows, and to even behold it with your eyes uplifts your spirit. Okay, that's what art is meant to do, uplift your spirit. That's why when you look at modern art, you see the cultural Marxism of modern art, where some of it's just gross, and it's meant to be gross. It is anti-life. This whole thing of, I'm not defining art. I'm just defining that art, to me, is meant to uplift, or if it's going to disturb you in a way that makes you examine something. All right? Some of this gross stuff, it's meant to demoralize you. And when you're demoralized, it's hard to be inspired. Inspired really is to let the spirit move through you. Inspire spirit. Of course, it has something to do with breath, but breath is the spirit, and God's breath moved on the waters. And again, I'm not playing with anybody's God concept. God, we need to keep very, very open term, but understand about the kind of like the prime mover and its fractalized fashions. I might make a video on all that to kind of help people parse out, because I think that there are a lot of people who are atheists, and the reason they're atheists is because they're trying to work from God concepts that are not well constructed. And so when we're looking at a nation as a piece of art, if we're going to be more diverse, again, who wants a black and white nation or a grayscale nation? Really, I want it vibrant. I actually love the different, not only cuisines, But even the nuanced kind of almost like a setting of an attitude. I mean, like, okay, we have in America, we have an African American population that, comes from Africa. Now, of course, you get somebody from Africa, you see a very, they're kind of different, especially if they're, from Ghana, Nigeria, whatever place. African Americans are a very unique expression of what I consider, sub-Saharan African spirit. I happen to love it. I love it. I'm a musician. Before, although the Beatles kind of made me pick up a guitar, when I had finally learned enough and started playing some lead, who was one of my first lead guitar heroes? Jimi Hendrix. When I picked up the bass, sure, I mean, Jack Bruce got there, but when I finally said, I kind of like that playing in the pocket, it was people like Jerry Jamot and who's the Hook, James Jamerson. And then, Bootsy Collins. And of course, it's not even about a color thing, but as a musician, I've had black heroes to inspire me. And so, there's a certain, feel. There's this, it's almost like the drums that, that there's a certain primalness that is carried into the music that the African culture, and when it came into American culture, introduced to us. So, let's look at him as a musician. Blues, okay? That's an American motif, and it was really brought to us by our African population, okay? Our African American population. Jazz is certainly the black movement. I don't know if certainly some of the jazz greats are in fact African Americans. And then of course, you have that kind of freeform jazz. You have Dixieland jazz, okay, which it has all kind of uplifting, and it's got certain beats to it. It's a completely different kind of jazz. It's got multiple instruments making different voices. Oh my, it's such an uplifting thing. Gospel music. The difference between the Mormon Tabernacle Choir is beautiful, but then you go to like a Baptist church, especially a Black Baptist church, and listen to those choirs, man, and whoa! Both completely different things, not one better than the other. This is where, depending on what mood I'm in, one might be, especially one might be better for going to sleep to. If I wanted to go to sleep to a choir, and if I wanted to just have my spirits uplifted, the other choir would do it. So this is where we get into the art, and we start appreciating the different colors that we can bring to me the portrait. In this case, because I'm speaking for America, of America. So there's an artistic way of being diverse, but it has to be done by an artist, not some slop hack like the globalist cultural Marxists. They're not artists, they're demons. And so their idea of diversity is demon art. And we see this demonic art. We see this diversity in the European Union. That's not an artist. That's a demon at work. That's turd painting on the wall. That's that kind of art. That's spirit cooking. So we need to set our own standards. We need to finally start sharing enough, and it's happening. It's happening. It's not like, we need to start. We need to start doing it more. We need to start doing it, actually know we're doing it, know we're reaching out, know we're making connections, know we're creating diversity, we're creating networks, we're creating coherence, we're sharing. More conscious and more deliberate in what we're going to create. Because the way we take away from the globalists and their orchestration is we start becoming the musicians. They can't, again, they're making demon music. So if we're going to get back to the wonderful, loving experience you can be at, even though it's not all clean and whatever, but overall it keeps a coherence. Occasionally we will have a cold, but it's not cancer. Humans will have little illnesses, even in their, even when they're doing a lot of things right. but the globalists are cancer. They're cancerous virus. They are tumors on the wonderful spirit of humanity. And you know, again, all they need the terrain, and the terrain they need is ignorant people, hateful people, divided people, and poor mixing of colors, poor mixing of diversity, as these demon artists, these spirit cookers are enacting on us, is what creates this poor terrain, this chaos that they can operate in. And we are the only ones who can align ourselves and start sharing and start loving and allow for our differences, and knowing that, you know, there's lots of space. We don't have, you know, there are certain people we might, I can mate with you here, whatever. We can be very discerning, and there's room for everything. I mean, even in our body, heart cells are not liver cells, but they occupy the same space. They keep their distance, but they actually work together. So there's so many inspirations we can take. I think the human body is one of the greatest inspirations of difference and cohesion and working together for a common cause, which is the body operating in health. All right, so I think that's going to conclude this one of the globalists trying to hack our minds. If you like this video, please hit like. If you'd like to kind of find out what's coming next, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And I might ultimately be doing some other YouTube channels, but I will not be leaving the Modwiz channel. This is where I started. This is where my subscribers are, and I thank you all. My love to you all. Be well. Bye for now.